Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on Tuesday, the 30th of May 2023, in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And I always encourage you to visit Kevin's YouTube channel, The Kevin Moore Show, where he has lots of additional information about the greater reality, all presented in his particular novel and wonderful way. So let's look at the agenda for today. We're going to have the lecture, which is going to be about the misinformation age. Then we're going to have questions and answers. And then finally, we're going to have a meditation, which is based upon core star meditation that Barbara Brennan taught and my instructor, Helen, taught me nearly 25 years ago. Okay, so let's move on with the lecture. So what is the misinformation age? Well, we talk about different ages of man, such as the medieval age, the Bronze Age, Iron Age. And we've gone through the technological ages, where we started with things like Brunel, doing in the Victorian era, when there's lots and lots and lots of different tremendous work happened and tremendous movements forward in technology. Then we've had the information age, where we've had the ability to be able to communicate with each other over vast distances really fast, so that there's no location on the earth anymore. Well, that is, unless you go into the desert, and therefore you have to use satellite-based telecoms, where we cannot be connected to each other pretty much instantaneously. So this means that information can spread really quickly, and the knowledge about and the analysis of what we're doing and how we're doing it can spread really quickly as well. But there's lots and lots of conspiracy theorists out there, and they try to spread misinformation about anything, basically, from the way governments act to the way individuals act, to the detail behind various different specialisms or areas of knowledge of any sort. So the misinformation age is really where we are now, because there's so much misinformation on the internet that is instantaneously accessible, that is very, shall I say, difficult to discern as being correct versus the real information, that if we're not careful, we can go off into the completely different direction that we should be, because the information that we're looking at is actually misinformation and not real information. Now, why do we have misinformation? Well, different countries create misinformation to put those individuals who are in the intelligence industry, such as spies, for example, off the scent of what's really happening. But the interesting thing is now, although this was to do with basically intelligence-based warfare and physical warfare, you can still see now operating between the Russians and the Ukrainians, where there's lots and lots of misinformation being presented from Russia to tell the Russian people that there is a significant advantage to Russia, taking over the land that is previously individualized as being Ukraine. And there's also lots of other things that are happening, such as misinformation about UFOs, for example, or alien technologies and alien races. There's also misinformation about medical practices, medical medicine, if you want a better word, pills, unguents, treatments, things to enable us to, in essence, be better individuals, is all part of the misinformation age. So we have to be really careful as to where we get information and how we get it, because we can't even trust the newscasters on the BBC, CNN, etc., 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 because everything is skewed towards what they would want us to see rather than what the reality is, or what they've found, or what they're trying to sensationalize. So sensationalism is also part of the misinformation age. So when you look on the internet, or you read magazines, or you read tabloid press of any sort, we have to be very, very careful in how we understand or use the information that's presented in these different medias. What I would suggest is that we, as, shall we say, spiritually advanced individuals who are questioning our reality around us, also start to question the information that's given to us. And that also means that although generally spiritual people, when they broadcast information, don't want to broadcast misinformation, sometimes that information is individualized to the point of discriminating against what is reality versus what they would want us to see or hear or feel or know. So again, we have to be very careful in how we assimilate knowledge. So use your intuition, use your desire to understand more and more depth and detail towards what information you are digesting and how you're getting your information. Use your intuition. If it feels good, then it's right. If it feels wrong or bad, then it's not right. And this is a general rule of thumb for using the intuition, which is basically clairsentience, or the Hindus call it superconsciousness. It's an excellent way of judging whether the information you're receiving is bona fide or not. Another way to do it in a more mechanical way is to do lots of digging, do lots of research into different aspects of media and different levels of media and different angles that media give on the same subject matter. And then you'll be able to understand or ascertain whether there's a discrepancy, an indiscrepancy, or a correct level of information surrounding misinformation. Remembering, of course, that misinformation will always have nuggets of the truth in there to confuse us or to convince us that that information is in fact real. So look at the nuggets and join the dots together. You might find one nugget is in one piece of information about the same subject that doesn't have that nugget in another direction for the same information. So take the nuggets of truth from the different media or different modalities of trying to get the same information, and then you'll find that you start to get the big picture about what the truth is about the subject you're researching into. So look for the nuggets, the real information, and discard the rest. And then as you add the nuggets together, you'll start to get the overall truth. It's a shame that we, as a so-called advanced civilization, and I use the word advanced in a very a very cheeky way, that we can't trust each other. We can't trust what we're listening to. We can't trust what we're seeing. We can't trust what we're told. And people will take this misinformation, and if it feels right to them, or it's within their paradigm, for example, or within their event space, they will broadcast it and augment it, therefore perpetuating the depth and the broadcasting capacity of that misinformation, even giving it higher levels of authority, because authority figures will broadcast it. So if you see an authority figure or somebody you feel you trust broadcasting information that you feel is not right, do your homework, look in the background, look for those nuggets of reality within the different modalities, different directions in which the information is coming, and ascertain what part of that information that's being broadcast from your preferred authority figure is actually true. And that includes me. So in saying that, look at all people. Look at Eckhart Tolle, look at Neil Walsh, look at all of the different people who are out there, and take that which you feel is right and which can stand the test of time. Look at Paramahansa Yogananda's books. Look at Yogi Ramacharkara's books. I don't know if I've said that right, but look at the books that have got longevity in them. Look at the information that's got longevity in them, and you will start to see that there is lots and lots of information in there which is true, but try to siphon out the absolute nuggets of truth from the embellishment or the misinformation that's there, because we really are in the misinformation age. And as such, this is probably the most dangerous era that we have ever been in this particular form of the human civilization. So we're in the misinformation age. Use your intuition to find out what the truth is amongst the vast percentage of untruths. Okay, let's go to the questions and answers.
So welcome everybody to this May Satsanga. And before we start, I've got to give my absolute gratitude to Ulla, who has worked like a worker bee of many hives potential, transcribing, compiling and editing all of the last 10 years Satsangas to create the 3 books which are now the World Satsanga series or trilogy. Whether it gets to 4 to make it into a quadrilogy, I don't know, but right now she's finished the work and deserves a absolute applause because she's worked so hard. And in fact, without Ulla transcribing them, we wouldn't be in the position where we could start to think about a book, let alone the 3 books that have transpired. And also, it wouldn't have become a book without her motivation and her desire to basically broadcast the satsangas over the years in both lectures and questions and answers in the way that she has. So this means basically that that repository of information will be removed from the website because it's now available in books. So thank you again, Ella, for the fantastic amount of work you've done. I've done some advertising with blogs on the Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on my website, and I think Ella's done some as well. But it's been a fantastic amount of work and unbelievable amount of work she's done. So just goes to show her expansive capacity. Thank you very much. So we'll leave that on and as part of the Satsanga start of the questions and answers. So, and I'll also put it on the newsletter as well. So brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got the first of the so far 7 messages that come through. This is Jag saying, gratitude for all this work you're doing and uplift people spiritually. I've been listening to various channels on YouTube and they all come up with similar messages, but your lectures have done so much more depth and details to it. Thank you for providing this in-depth knowledge. Thank you. In fact, there's an interesting the lecture associated with this is about the misinformation age, which is where we are now. And it suddenly came to me that we are in a complete stage of misinformation. Everything we're getting is laced with little bits of truth, but with a lot of trying to pull you in one way or another way. And that's not just spirituality, that's everything. So we have to be really careful, really discerning. Right, so quick first question from Jagjot. There's an entity that's existed throughout Hindu mythology named the Hanuman. He's a powerful devotee of God. Even in today's time, many powerful Indian mediums use Hanuman as their guiding entity. Can you please provide us more information on Hanuman? Well, one of the Hindu scriptures or works of Patanjali, I think I'm starting to investigate. So I don't know this level of detail about Hanuman, but it feels as if in effect, people are using the name rather than the actual entity, because there can't be one entity that's working with Source or God to work with mankind. There's too much going on, even for omnipresent and omniscient entities. So I'm feeling that there's a lot of people using the name, a bit like in India, a lot of politicians say that they have these pictures of all the different deities there, saying that the God's on their side and that they're all on their side helping them, which is actually a misuse of the divinity that's there and the knowledge that's there. So I'm feeling that it's more of we'll use this name to say we're working with them to try and make the importance of what they're saying more important than it currently is. So I don't know about this Hanuman. I'll be really pleased if you could send some information from the Hindu perspective, which would be really good, so we can broadcast that and add it into the detail. But I'm really feeling that the name is being used to promote others without actually being able to contact with them, because if it's just saying one entity is interesting. Although we've had many entities, haven't we? We've had Krishna, we've had Christ, we've had Muhammad, other entities as well, and all of the ascended masters, the famous 12 ascended masters, and the countless others that have also mastered incarnation and ascended beyond the need to incarnate. So I think that it's being used as a means of advertisement, really, rather than the fact that they are actually communicating with them. It's a bit like there's a lot of it in the Western world as well, where there's people who are using various names. I mean, White Eagle, for one, is a very popular First Nation character that was being channeled by people, and lots of people were saying that they were channeling them. But it's difficult even for me to feel that, although there are clearly entities helping us and guiding us, that they will be coming through all these different people. They tend to go through known sources of purity, not lots of different sources. So it's worth considering. Next question: can AI software like ChatGPT acquire sentience? If so, where will it be placed in frequency levels? In the book, which has just come out, there's a chapter on there about, not specifically about artificial intelligence, but about machine sentience, and that it can acquire sentience, but it can't acquire a soul or an aspect, because it doesn't have, it isn't sentience as we would know it. Our sentience is beyond physicality. AI sentience would need to be linked to a platform of some sort, structure of some sort, whether that's electronic or whether that's bioelectronic or whether that's some form of biology that's allowed it to migrate, but it wouldn't be the same as us. So although it might have a level of appearance of having sentient function, it won't be able to go beyond the physical. Okay, so it will be around where we are now, first three frequencies, and probably the fourth or the fifth, if those entities at those levels were developing the same levels of software. Next question: there are mantras in Sanskrit language that are to be chanted to get specific results, but most of us do not know the ancient language of Sanskrit. Even if you do not know the language, would chanting such mantras have an effect, even if we don't even know the meaning of what we are chanting? The answer is yes, because they have a meaning. And if you look at things like the work of Paramahansa Yogananda, he suggests chanting Hong Saw when you're breathing, which is a pranayama. So it's a level down from Kriya Yoga. But the Hong Saw literally means I'm one with my father. My father is one with me. I am my father, which is like me saying in the traversing of frequencies, I'm one with the source. The source is one with me. I am the source. I was given that information completely aside from understanding that's what the Hong Saw was all about. So what I'm suggesting is as long as you work with the essence of what the mantra is, even though you don't know what it is, you know it's got powerful energy surrounding it, it will work. Okay. And was there any major ascensions events on the March 22nd? I don't know of any, to be honest. I don't know of any. I don't know of any major world influences either that have moved on that would be classified as a major ascension, or any group of individuals. No, I'm not seeing anything that's major on March 22nd at all. Or was it March 2022? I don't know, but I'm not picking up anything major recently. In fact, most people have been trying very hard to maintain their own frequencies, whereas an awful lot are struggling and are dropping down the frequencies. And it's quite common for people to have a partner who, if they're on naturally higher frequency and they're struggling to maintain theirs, maybe their partner isn't doing that, and they've dropped down. They've become, dissatisfied, angry, frustrated, and almost incompatible with them now. So that's more likely what I'm seeing rather than any major ascensions. Next one's from Ulla. Okay, I'm reading the On book, which talks about the Anu, the fundamental particle of matter. Previously, you said that the Anu exist on all levels from frequency 1 to 12. Are they just more diffuse at high levels? but the arm said the Anu only exist in the gross physical or at frequency 4, not higher, since our vehicles at frequency levels 5 to 7 have templates and chakras. What is the vehicle made of? Is it just about solidity with Anu versus physicality interaction without the Anu? All of the physical universe is physical, irrespective of its level of finitude or its manifestation based upon its frequential level. So when we look at, if we consider that, and then we go backwards into what creates physicality, then we have to understand that there's a basic building block, a basic something or other that creates the possibility of the manifestation of form or matter. And that basic building block is the Anu. And irrespective of the level of frequency associated with the Anu, it will be there. Now, it might not be particularly manifest as a function of where we are. It might be a case that it is mostly available, mostly, shall I say, mostly predominantly represented, that's a good word, on those lower frequency levels. So although the arms said they only exist in the gross physical and frequency level 4, that's where they would be mostly used to create the gross physical. And above that, the building blocks are still there, but they wouldn't be a dominant part of the content of the physical universe in those frequency levels. So it's pretty much the same thing, that both conditions exist, but the arm of basically categorized the manifestation of the Anu and and the building blocks that it allows to be created later. Because of course the Anu is the 6th level of quanta, and then you go above that and you get other levels, including the leptons, which are the quarks, the strangeness, and the charm. And you go further up and you start to get the protons, neutrons, electrons, atoms, and then true gross physicality. So what I'm feeling here is that the almost have categorized it rather than said it's across all the frequencies associated with the physical. So since the vehicles at frequency level 5 to 7 are templates and chakras, what is their vehicle made of? Is it just about solidity with the Anu versus physicality interaction without the Anu? It's about interaction based upon the frequential level that a particular form factor we incarnate into and the content of the environment supported by that frequency is. So in essence, if we go to the 7th frequency level, for that frequency level, it may feel like it's solid, even though it's not to us here. But there may be a level of interaction that creates the possibility to manipulate the environment at a different level to what we've got here. So manipulation could be by thought, rather than by physically having our hands on it and creating tools to manipulate, or to smelt raw ore to create metals, those sorts of things. Okay, well, thank you for the book. Thank you very much. Okay, again, number 2, the origin speaks. The origin 11 was not terminated. It was still spiraling out, randomly appearing and disappearing whilst experiencing assimilated absorption. It lost its energies and developed its own function outside of the origin's work. So the origin let it go. It sounds a bit possible, like the pure Om. Yeah. Is it possible that some of them came from origin number 11, or a precursor like that with the help of event space? No, the Om have created as a function of the first, well, what I currently understand is the first group of 12 source entities. And I use that term interestingly because I'm starting to realize there's other groups of 12 source entities as well, probably up to 44 source entities. But that's for the book I'm working on now, and not this particular questions and answers session. But I will say that it's interesting, and this is a little bit of a sneak preview to the next book. Right now, the origin, as we know it, in this linear state, has individualized lots of different volumes of sentience to help it understand itself more, experience, learn, and evolve. At some point, everything goes back into one volume of sentience. So even the on go back into being one with the origin. And that's an interesting thought process. And everything goes back to being one. And there's a reason for that, because the origin starts to go beyond the highest of the levels of structure in the highest of the levels of structure and goes into and beyond structural space. Now there's a teaser for you. Or sometimes they say on the internet an Easter egg. Okay. Next one. In the book The Origin Speaks, chapter 5, Origin mentions that at once we were expansive enough to know about the supplemental components of evolution. We will be, and that these will broadcast to us. Are we there yet? Will we be great enough to be able to know about how else we are progressing in evolution? We need to move beyond the first 3 levels of frequency first. We need to move beyond gross physicality before we start to understand this. So the start point from that perspective would be the 4th level, which would be what we classify now as the lower astral. So when we collectively start to incarnate into bodies, human bodies, that are basically a function of the 4th frequency level rather than where we are now, we'll have a bit more communicative bandwidth. It's not very good English, is it? We have more communicative bandwidth, and that will enable us to be able to understand more intuitively, and therefore work with that which is available to us and understanding more about who and what we are. So when we know that, we'll start to understand what other incarnate civilizations know, who come from the 4th frequency and drop down the frequencies to visit us and see how we're doing with our particularly unique role here, which is individualized free will in this particular location and this particular frequency. And that's because we hear lots of stories about different alien entities saying that, you know, they know what source is and they know what God is, and they work in that way. They don't work for themselves. They work collectively for the civilization and other civilizations, and that's when you start to understand evolution. And so you work together to evolve, not individually, as we're doing right now. Okay, Jagjat again. I have heard your chakra repair and energetic link removal exercise in various satsangas. Is that the only way to fix those issues? Can they be fixed by just chanting or Kriya Yoga, etc.? My feeling is there needs to be focus, and just doing a generalized thing such as Kriya or chanting or another mantra such as Hong So would simply just elevate your frequencies. It wouldn't actually fix anything as such. We need to be focused on repairing chakras or repairing the energy templates associated with the construct of the human body, rather than just creating a higher frequency condition. Because if the problem is on all the frequency levels associated with the different energy templates, then we may work on one particular frequency level, but not the others. So we need to be able to heal or have a focus on what we're going to heal and how we're going to heal it. So my feeling is that although meditating and chanting and doing things like Hong So and Kriya are very good, excellent, it's the focus that's required that makes the difference. Number 6, when we are in the company of a person who's experiencing low frequency, that is anger, frustration, and if we are supporting them in that event, does that mean that we are also partially taking over the low frequency or the karma of that person? It doesn't mean we're taking over the karma of that person because we're supporting them, but it does mean we have the potential to be dragged down to their frequency, because we start to associate with them and start to empathize with them. And in empathizing with them, we start to co-join and link. And if they're dropping down the frequencies, we will also drop down the frequencies. It's significantly easier to drop down the frequencies than it is to clamber back up the frequencies if you drop down. In fact, in some cases, it's almost impossible and people don't do it. So the only way to support these individuals is to stay high frequency, to stay bright, to stay positive. And if they have, for example, particularly negative viewpoints on things, always offer a positive way and don't get drawn into the negative response later. Carrying on from this, and I think this is a different thing altogether. There are stories where spiritual gurus would take over the karma of their students to help them progress. How does that work? That works in 2 ways. and it's completely different to the first part of the question. If a student is devoted enough to want to be able to progress and increase their frequencies and become a yogi or a learned individual or a wizened person, etc., then they will do two things. One, they'll stay within the energies of the guru, because that artificially elevates them to a different level so they can start to function without creating their own methods of maintaining their own frequencies, and therefore do it themselves. And two, any karmic links that a student has got, the yogi or the guru can remove that so that they are a cleaner and more pure individual. So they don't have to fight against removing their karma. And as such, they have a head start in gaining a higher frequential level. So it was quite common for students to sleep very close to their guru, always by the feet of their guru, and the guru would teach them how to be, good citizens, how to be good students, and in doing so, they would get little tasters of what it's like to be able to experience and observe the content of the earth on different frequential levels. So they'll be temporarily elevated to different levels so they can see what it's like to be in samadhi, for example. They'd have a temporary samadhi condition to give them a carrot to get them going, and removing the karma helps them progress faster because they're not battling against this weight, this shackle that pins them down to the gross physical. So the guru would do that, and in doing so, the guru takes on board that karma. Because they're already a higher frequency, they're not associated with it, and therefore they effectively burn it off, if that's a way to describe it. Okay. In psycho-spiritual healing, can you provide any physical examples where great results were achieved, especially related to organ reconstruction? A really good one, I feel, was where the wife of a radio presenter who I've been on their show a number of times in the past, as an internet-based radio show, had a significant number of ovarian cysts. I'm talking big ovarian cysts, size of grapefruits, and she was due to go in to have these removed in an operation. And I was asked to do some healing on her, and she totally not just believed but knew that the healing was going to work. And she'd had literally 2 days before an X-ray that showed these cysts there. And so I'd performed a healing, and I said, it will be good to get another X-ray to make sure that everything's fine before you go and do your surgery, because I fully support that we need sometimes in chronic cases or long-term cases both energy-based or spiritual healing and the mechanical side, the physical healing, to help the client or the patient recover faster. So you're tackling both worlds. Anyway, around 3 or 4 days went by, and they came back to me and said that she hadn't gone in for the operation. And the reason why they hadn't gone into the operation is because she had an X-ray and there was no cysts there at all. And the doctors were so surprised, they thought that the first set of X-rays was somebody else's X-rays. They checked the records thoroughly to make sure they hadn't got them mixed up, and they hadn't. And the doctor couldn't explain it. He said it's like a spontaneous regression of cancer. You see some people have like a cancer, and then all of a sudden it's gone, within a couple of days. It was a similar sort of thing. And the doctor couldn't explain it. He said it's just a spontaneous healing. I don't understand it. But I was I was as impressed as they were, to be honest. But the thing that worked was 2 ways. One, I felt it could work, and so I worked on it, and I went through a logical process based upon the healing program that I've been taught. And 2, the person I worked with didn't just believe it; she knew it was going to work, and that's what made it work totally. Any minor chink in the armor of knowingness creates belief, and that leaves the potential for doubt. So this person knew it was going to work, and she was healed. So that's the best example I can give. Next one, so oh, thank you, Ola. Yeah, thank you again, Ola, for the work you've done. It's absolutely been unbelievable amount of work. Right, next one's from AW. In Satsanga on the 29th of June 2019, you made a mental note to ask the origin about more details about structures of different energies and what they will do and what energies will belong together. Can we expect a chapter on all about sacred geometry in Beyond the Origin book? There is something, and there's also something I believe in The Origin Speaks on sacred geometry. So have a look at that. But I'm going to make a note right now just to put it into the list of things to talk about The Origin, sacred geometry. But the thing is, the higher up the frequencies we go, the less understanding of the energies that are there we will have, because they're outside of our understanding. A couple of 100 years ago, we had no idea what radio waves were. We wouldn't be able to understand them. We wouldn't be able to detect them. We wouldn't be able to manipulate them or use them as a communication medium. So knowing about it doesn't exactly mean we will understand it. So we have to think about those sorts of things. Okay, I've made a note of that. Thank you. Next one's from Ulla. I don't consider myself as being a teacher, by the way. I just consider myself as being somebody who's helping people realize the truth. So that's my. So thank you for that acknowledgement. But it's all part of me helping me and me helping you and helping us all help each other. Next one, Faith. To observe quantum latency and fluidity whilst incarnated requires 12.4% of sentience with evolutionary content. What's the percentage of sentience required to be able to create by changing quantum latency into position of quantum locking, i.e. create more vegetation? More than the 12.4%. I'm seeing over 15%, because we're not talking about where we are now. Where we are now, in general, an incarnate soul in the human body has got about 2.5% of the volume of sentience associated with their true energetic self. So when we're talking about manipulating energies to the point of changing the structure of mountains and making them into rivers and forests and those sorts of things, we need to be able to understand how other individuals are interacting with the environment as well and affecting the perpetuation of that environment in its form. So we need to be able to override it, not just create it. If we were in a location which is not affected by anything, i.e. one of the universes within the multiverse where there's little to no population for a period, we could do whatever we wanted to with around 3 to 4% of the volume of sentience we've got now, that we've got from our true energetic self. But in an area which is highly has a high level of focus from billions of souls and more, that this is what their reality is, this is how it's going to stay, then we have to fight that as well. So every time we try to change things from one level of quantum locking to a level of quantum latency, we're having to combat that being recreated all the time. So I hope that helps. Right, we're in the last 10 minutes, so I better carry on. Do we have a sentient program to be in a state of quantum locking? We just have a state of desire to be in this particular location right now, and interact with it in this way. And the sheer fact that our environments, wherever we are whatever they are, means that we have accepted that as being our environment, and we perpetuate it along with others doing the same thing. So in effect, together we are creating a significant level of sentience to create the environment we know, the physical universe, and the locations. So that basically tells, is it only possible if an aspect is in communion with this test? Really, yeah, we'd need to be the true energetic self would almost need to be incarnate here on its own without any aspects or shards. So the true volume of sentience that it is would need to be here, or the maximum amount it would allow to be incarnate here, which is a potential 30%. So imagine an entity is incarnate in the physical universe at 30% of the sentience of its true energetic self. It would be significant. I think that answers the next part of it as well. So from Ola, what were created from source entities? All of them apart from the new basically. In essence, though, we've got the categories, haven't we? We've got the pure of which are we're totally individualized and moved away from the energies associated with source entities, even before the source entities were formed as individualized units of sentience. And then you've got those that have a lower volume of sentience associated with the origin and more associated with a source entity, but are still able to move outside of the volume of sentience and the structure of energy associated with that sentience. So they would be called non-captive Then you have the captive where there's more volume of sentience associated with the source entity, and then you have the hybrid which is like very, very small levels. So the ones that are created by source entities is the non-captive basically, captive and hybrid you wrote in the book that the origin the were individualized after the origin moved to the next level. They were really happy to be individualized after that shift. I don't understand that. You wrote in the book that that's the oh, this is or origin. I don't understand that question, so I need to we ask that in the next Satsanga, because I'm a bit confused with it should be or origin. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Does the source entity feel attached to our trajectory and wish for a certain outcome for us? The source entity is neutral in terms of how we are progressing, but in without doubt, it would like us to progress faster in terms of our understanding of who we are and move beyond the need to incarnate, to evolve. But it feels that we are as its smaller individualized units projected into the lower frequencies of that which it is, that we are progressing along with the other form factors we incarnate into in a way which is in general positive. I mean, if you think about it, we're in the third evolutionary cycle, and we're moving really quickly. So collectively, not just on Earth, but everywhere in the physical universe, we must be doing something right. Even though where we are right now is not as good as it could be. Okay. Next one from Other. If we take a snapshot of the origins, growth, and evolution right now, what is the relative contribution of the 12 source entities versus all the basically, source entities have done significantly a large amounts compared to the I think the are quite lazy. In reality, they don't like to be held responsible for anything that creates that's caused through creativity. So the vast majority of them don't create, because that creates responsibility and that ties them down. So my view is that the source entities have created significantly more evolutionary content than the And what about the future after 100,000 evolutionary cycles? Isn't the whole point of us to become a creator entities that experience, learn, and evolve from our creations? It is, but there's a time where evolution will happen spontaneously, and that's in the book I'm writing now, and that includes the expansion of the origin. Before, the pure say that they say, I'll start again. The pure say they prime the origin's unexplored areas for sentience to occupy it later. That's true. But they also said the origin keeps its sentience in the already explored areas, even as it expands into unexplored areas. You told us that one area is often explored by one or two source entities that sometimes overlap and sometimes not. Once they've been there, done that, their sentience gets pulled away to a new area, and the new energies of the origin, they move on. Doesn't the origin move into the same fashion? It's with what I'm working on now, it's actually quite confusing. There's two ways to look at this. there's the way that that's described in the book on the arm. There's the way that I've been exposed to now, and there's the way which is linear. And we have to understand that there's lots of different understandings of what linearity is, and it can be what's your word for it? Polyvariable linearity or something. I can't remember the name of it now. What I was told, but basically, what is initially linear can create instantaneous levels of expansion and of occupation of space, and so therefore that which created that instantaneous expansion therefore gets absorbed by that instantaneous expansion, so the linearity of it disappears. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Or the egg or the chicken? When the chicken and the egg are one. That's the that's what's happening. So all of these things, that question there is an excellent question, but I'm starting to realize that there's much more to it than we can understand from a linear perspective. And so what we're getting is different ways in which things were happening, and some of them are different, and some of them are the same, and some of them are completely dependent on the others, and others are just created as a function of the others, and then that creation disappears because it becomes the now. Yeah. Right. Do any conceptive or captive or even hybrid have children in their human lifetimes? Hybrid do. I'm not seeing any captive at all, because they don't usually incarnate, and they know that having children is karmic. I'm only seeing that the hybrid would, in reality, from what I can detect around here. Certainly on the first three frequency levels. It's on. They were relieved to be individualized. I'm relieved to be individualized up to a certain point, and even they become one with the origin later. Everything becomes one with the origin. That's in the book I'm writing now. Okay. And we've only got a minute left. So the last two questions from Faith, I might have to tag on to the end, but I'll read them out very quickly. You said earlier that we need 15% of sentience to be able to create new vegetation, but it seems that it's impossible for us in this three-dimensional world, since we never have much sentience while incarnated. So humankind cannot accomplish that. Hum was saying we kind of could, and I could not see that that's happening based upon your response now. Collectively, we probably could. That's the thing to think about. Adding our sentience together would create the condition. But if we all in the world work together, we could create more than that 15%. It's having us all doing it together. What's your current frequency now? That's my current frequency. Or what frequency are you operating from? I understand the Hum in the book said that you are operating from higher than frequency level 4. So I'm supposed to be outside of the multiversal environment, which is beyond frequency level 408. Because apparently I'm supposed to be from the pure arm. And as a result of that, one would think that I have significantly more capabilities than I have here, but that's wrong. When we incarnate into the lower frequencies associated with the physical universe, we all experience the loss of communicative bandwidth associated with being at such low frequencies. And so, irrespective of the evolutionary level or the frequential level or the origin of a particular entity, if it incarnates into the lower frequencies of the multiverse, which is represented by the physical universe, we have to abide by the function of that aspect of the multiverse, and that would be also the frequencies that are outside of a particular source entity. So if I went into and created something that allowed me to move into the same free frequencies that are outside of the source in another location within the origin's first group of 12 levels of structure, then I would be subject to the same thing, irrespective of whether it's on Earth or somewhere else. So irrespective of whether we are grandmasters, or whatever you want to call us, or yogis, or advanced entities. When we incarnate into any location within the first three frequencies, we are also subject to the same levels of limitation, significant limitation. Okay, so I'm supposed to be beyond the multiverse of our source entity, but I'm still held by the constraints of that environment. Well, thank you very much for participating in this May Satsanga. I'm looking forward to working with you in the meditation, and looking forward to seeing you, of course, in June. Namaste to you all.
Welcome everybody to the meditation side of this May Satsanga, and we're going to do a core star meditation. Now, for those of you who've read the books or listened to the lectures of the World Satsanga, that you'll know that the core star is the juncture of the separation or the individualization of sentience from its associated energy that is projected down through this hypodermically thin tube that is the Hara line that allows the maintenance of connectivity, albeit very low, between the smaller aspect of sentience and energy, or the soul, projected from the true energetic self in its usual frequency of habitude, or the universe within the multiversal environment. And this core star meditation allows us to connect ourselves with the earth and the higher frequencies associated with our normal environment. Now, the core star is located basically just in towards the middle of the body. Okay, the energy that separates out from the core star is in a place called the Tantien, which is in the center line of the body and around 1.5 inches below the belly button. That's around 30 millimeters. Okay, and the soul seat, which is also called the middle Tantien, is located about 2.5 inches or 62 millimeters from the throat, again on the center line of the body. And the Hara line connects everything together. Okay, connects all those three locations where our sentience is together or is separated out to the soul seat or the Tantien. And it also connects us to the earth as well, the lower frequencies associated with this particular environment that we're in. If we're on a different planet, it would be connecting us to the ground of that planet as well. So what I want you to do now is you can do this in two ways. If you have trouble standing, you can do it sitting, but I'll describe the thought process of surrounding that. But when you're standing, you stand with your knees slightly bent, with your feet shoulder width apart and your arms and hands loosely hanging by your side. If you have trouble standing for a long time, because a core star meditation can take up to an hour, so it can be a long time standing. But if you're sitting down, just visualize that you're standing, and you'll achieve the same thing because it's using your intention. If you're sitting, make sure you're sitting in a straight-backed chair with your feet flat on the ground, your back straight and your neck in line with your back, your hands palm uppermost on your upper thighs. And in both standing and sitting situations, you close your eyes and your eyes are gently focused, or your closed eye vision gently focused on the origin of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose, basically in the center of the forehead, in the same location as the spiritual or third eye chakra, although it's not the same thing at all. It's in a different frequency or location. So this basically allows us to feel our beingness, this meditation. So once you've achieved those two meditative postures, just visualize that the Hara line moves down from the Tantien, down to the pelvis, goes down each leg, down towards the ground. That's your connection to the earth. So in connecting to the earth, you should start to feel powerful, or rooted, or grounded. If you don't, that's fine. Just know that you are grounded. Okay, and move back up those lines. Use your intention or your visualization or your mentally spoken words if you want to speak quietly or speak in your mind's voice. That you're moving up from those points on the ground where your feet are, up through the knees, to the pelvis, up the spine, past the Tantien, past the core star, which is the juncture of sentience and energy, up the rest of the horror line, past the soul seat or middle Tantien, up through the rest of the spine, and through the origin of the crown chakra. So you're moving your sentience, your observation up through the crown chakra. And you may start to feel a little bit drowsy or basically more expansive as you're doing this. Now focus on a point about 3 feet or 1 meter above your crown, the crown of your head. There's a vortex there. This vortex is basically the juncture of the first of the step down frequencies that are associated with the soul being able to connect with and integrate with the human form. So this is the 10th frequency. There's another step down juncture at the 9th frequency, another one on the 8th, and then we move into the spiritual physical construct that is the human form, supported by the 7th energy template and therefore the crown chakra. So move up to this vortex. This is the point at which we start to move away from those energies that create the human form. So as you move into this vortex, you move out of the construct that is the human form, and you might hear a pop in your ears, or your mind's ear, your clairaudience. If you don't hear a pop, that's okay. Just know that you've moved up through this juncture. Now move up, let's say, 3 more frequencies. Let's go through the 11th, 12th. Moving out of the 12th brings us into the 13th. And the 13th frequency is the first frequency of the second full dimension. So we're now into the multiversal environment. Not into the location where our true energetic self is, because that'll be significantly higher, but we are outside of the constraints of the physical universe. At this point, you should start to feel your beingness, the essence of who you are. This is what the soul seat and the core star do, because the core star and the soul seat are both locations where sentience resides. And it'll be your life plan, your reason to be. You'll start to feel and know who you are. Because these 2 areas now, these 2 locations now, are connected into frequencies that have significantly higher levels of bandwidth, higher levels of communicative bandwidth. So in connecting with the earth as well, we've maintained our grounding. So you will feel really grounded. You might feel slightly heavy if you shift your focus towards your feet. If you shift your focus towards being the other side of that vortex, into the 13th frequency, you'll feel lightheaded or expansive. From here you can connect and go further up the frequencies if you wish. While traversing the frequencies, courses teach us to do this in a different way. But this is one that was taught by Barbara Brennan and therefore taught by my teacher Helen 25 years ago. And another way to connect or reconnect with ourselves. So we'll just stay in this location. You can stay as long as you like. We'll stay here for a few minutes, just being grounded, being expansive at the same time. So you can stay at this level for as long as you like, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a full hour if you wish. But just know that you're grounded because you've connected with the earth. You've connected with the lowest frequencies of the physical universe. But also know that your sentience is now focused on being above those frequencies associated with the physical universe itself. So you're now into the next universe. Or if you want to go count your way up the frequencies, you can go into other universes. But I would just stay within the first 15 in total, recognizing that there's 12 associated with the physical universe. 13th, 14th, and 15th frequencies and their subsequent universal environments that they allow to be constructed are, in essence, a more expansive place to be for us. Feel the connectivity between this higher frequency and the combination of your sentience and its associated energy at the core star. The core star is very close to the Tantien and usually gets confused with it, specifically by inexperienced individuals, but just know that it's closer to the soul seat in terms of its direction, not its actual physical location, but it's above the Tantien. So we'll just stay here for a bit longer, just enough to experience this expansive state of beingness. Recognize how concepts might come easy to you, how you suddenly understand things that you didn't understand. Decisions that you had difficulty in making now become simple to make, obvious. The ability to resist temptation or habit becomes simple and not difficult as it is in the low frequencies associated with the physical universe. We'll just stay here for a bit longer, just to allow yourself to be connected still. Again, you could stay in this state for as long as you liked, so you could stop the recording, and if you want to, have an alarm clock on your wristwatch or your computer to let you know a longer time period that you would like to stay. Then you can restart the recording to bring yourself down. But from here, what we'll do now is we'll just change our focus on coming down this horror line from either the 13th, 14th, or 15th frequency, whichever you counted yourself up to, down through this vortex that is the first of the junctures, the step-down functions associated with the soul entering the lower frequencies of the human form. Okay. You may hear a pop again. If you don't worry. Then we go down to the next level, the 9th level, staying in the horror line. We come down the 8th level, again staying in the horror line. We come down through the crown chakra, coming down through the center of the body, the horror line that comes to the center of the body, And we settle on a location above the Tantien, but still in the center of the body. And allow our energy to move into the Tantien and our sentience to move up the Har line into the soul seat or middle Tantien, thereby reconnecting with our bodies, our physical forms, our vehicles to help us navigate around the physical universe and accrue evolutionary content. Well, that's the end of this meditation for the May Satsanga, May 2023 Satsanga. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please take all opportunity to practice this core style meditation. It's another way of connecting with the higher frequencies. And take the opportunity to stay as long as you like, and not the rather shortened version that we've done today. So looking forward to working with you again in June, and I'll send you all my love. I'll send you God's love as well. And namaste to you all.